Good evening. I will call to order the meeting of the Chautauqua County Legislature on April 23rd, 2025. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anthony. Mr. Bankowski. Absent. Mr. Buchanan. Absent. Mr. Carl. Absent. Mrs. Dickey. Mrs. Gustafson. Mr. Harmon.
Here.
Mr. Heiser.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Landy.
Present.
Mr. Larson.
Here.
Mr. Nelson.
Here.
Mr. Nebel.
Here.
Mr. Pavlock.
Here.
Mr. Penhallow. Absent. Mr. Proctor.
Here.
Mr. Scudder.
Here.
Ms. Vanstrom. Chairman Chagnon.
Yes.
There are 15 members present and 4 members absent. There is quorum.
Thank you. And at this time, we will have the prayer and pledge of allegiance by Legislator Proctor.
Let's bow our heads. Lord, we come before you tonight with humble hearts. 3 days ago, we celebrated the resurrection of your Son who died for our sins. Let us never forget that we are here to serve. Philippians 2:3 says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility and to value others above yourselves." Lord, grant us that humility and give us wisdom and understanding in our considerations tonight. Lord, we ask that you keep safe all those who serve our nation in the armed forces and our first responders and all those who keep us safe. Philippians 4:13, "I can do all this through him who gives me strength." We ask this in your name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I will point out for the body that our parliamentarian is not able to be with us physically tonight because he's incapacitated, but will be joining us on Zoom if we need him. And this time on our agenda, we have the approval of the minutes of the last meeting of the legislature on March 26th, 2025. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Legislator Gustafson, a second by Legislator Nelson. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They are carried. And that brings us to our first privilege of the floor. Members of the public may comment on any subject relating to any local law, resolution, or motion appearing on tonight's agenda. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes, and comments representing a group shall be limited to 5 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to address the first privilege of the floor?
At 92 Elmwood Avenue. I actually oppose the 1% increase. I understand that we have some, I know you don't like the word slush fund, but we have like 40 million already in there. And I just think that it would help the residents if we didn't increase of 1% for sales. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the first privilege of the floor? Seeing no one, I will close the first privilege of the floor. Christie?
There are no veto messages from County Executive Wendell from the March 26, 2025 legislature meeting. There are 9 communications listed on the agenda. If you would like a copy of any of these items, please let our office know.
And tonight we are privileged to have 3 public hearings on the agenda. And after each of the presentations for each of the public hearings, if anyone wishes to ask a question or make a comment, we'll ask that you step to the microphone in the back so we accurately record the questions and comments. So I will open the first public hearing regarding a potential application for 2025 Community Development Block Grant funding through the New York State Office of Community Renewal and the uses of said funding. So I'll ask Rosie Strandberg from the IDA to step forward and speak to it.
Good evening. My name is Rosie Stramberg, and I'm project manager of the Chautauqua Region Economic Development Corporation. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the requirements of the Community Development Block Grant Program. We are required to compile a list of people attending the hearing, so we ask that all members of the public who are attending the hearing please identify themselves. The Community Development Block Grant, also known as CDBG program, is a federally funded program authorized by Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, and administered by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. Funds are provided directly by HUD to large municipalities, generally over 50,000 in populations for cities, villages, and towns, and 200,000 for counties. Through the Formula Entitlement Program for all municipalities, the New York State Office of Community Renewal, also known as OCR, is New York State's designated agency for distributing CDBG funds through the Small Cities Program. The CDBG program provides grants to municipalities in order to ensure safe, decent, and affordable housing, assist businesses in activities that will create and retain employment opportunities, and provide improved public facilities and services. The OCR generally only funds projects or activities where at least 51% of the activity beneficiaries are low to moderate income persons, also known as LMI. A low to moderate income person is one who is a member of a family whose income is at or below 8% of the area median income established by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. Municipalities intending to apply for CDBG funding are required to hold a public hearing prior to submitting the application. Their hearing is for the purpose of 1, soliciting public input regarding community development and housing needs in the municipality, and 2, soliciting public comment regarding any specific activities proposed for submission. If funding is awarded, a second public hearing will be required during the implementation phase of the project or activity the CDBG funds are supporting. The Chautauqua Region Economic Development Corporation has asked Chautauqua County to apply for a grant in the amount not to exceed $100,000 from the OCR that will be provided as a grant to Critic, which will use the funds to provide a grant to Tulips Brunch House LLC to assist in financing a portion of the cost for furnishings, fixtures, and equipment and working capital expenses associated with a project in Mayville, New York. Tulip Brunch House LLC is proposing to reopen the House on the Hill restaurant located at 186 South Erie Street, Mayville, New York, and purchase furnishings, fixtures, and equipment and incur working capital expenses in connection with the project. The project is expected to create an estimated 4 full-time equivalent jobs, the majority of which will be held by or made available to low and moderate income individuals. Any person wishing to make comments regarding community needs or the proposed project is now invited to do so. Please state your name prior to making your comments.
Anyone wishing to make comments?
Thank you.
Then I will close the public hearing. Thank you, Rosie. And that brings us to our second public hearing. A public hearing regarding the 2025 Agricultural District inclusions. And to speak to this public hearing, I invite Lauren Sharp from the Planning Department to join us.
Thank you, and good evening. My name is Lauren Sharp. I'm a junior planner with the Chautauqua County Department of Planning and Development. I help to facilitate the Chautauqua County Agricultural District program. The Chautauqua County Legislature is responsible for the Chautauqua County Agricultural Districts numbered 1, 7, 8, and 11. In accordance with New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets, the annual yearly inclusion period was held from January 2nd to January 31st. Landowners submitted requests for land to be added to the ag districts during the month of January. The Chautauqua County Agricultural and Farmland Protection Board reviewed the requests and recommended for the 7 requested parcels to be added to the existing ag districts.
Is there anyone wishing to address the public hearing in this regard? Anyone to speak to the second public hearing? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. And that brings us to our longest public hearing. No, sorry, Matt. Brings us to our third public hearing. Pursuant to County Law 268, upon a proposal to upgrade wastewater treatment plant infrastructure in the North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District. And I'll introduce Matt Zarbo, the engineer for this project from Square Engineering.
Thank you for having me. Okay, it worked over there. Oh, here it goes. Alrighty, yes, my name's Matt Zarbo. I'm an engineer with Square Engineering, and we did an evaluation on the North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District plant, which is the plant right here in Mayville. It services Mayville as well as parts of the town of Chautauqua. So today we're going to talk about where the project is, our objectives of the studies, the capacity of the plant, as well as the condition, and then some proposed improvement alternatives to the plant and estimate annual user costs. As I said, I know these pictures up here are small, but the plant's right in Mayville. It discharges into a creek, which flows right into the north end of Chautauqua Lake, and largely services from the institution north, and then all the way out just north of Chautauqua Point on the east side along the lakeside areas. It's one of the county's two major county sewer plants. It currently is an RBC plant, and our evaluation basically moved to assess the current capacity of the plant, to plan for future expansions potential in the area, identify necessary improvement alternatives to accommodate any future expansions, as well as improvement alternatives that are just needed due to deficient infrastructure. And then we were also looking to evaluate alternatives to the Chautauqua Utility District. There's a service area of the North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District that goes to CUD, the treatment plant for the Chautauqua institution. And we were looking to evaluate opportunities to maybe send that to a county-owned plant. But in review of those alternatives, it didn't make a whole lot of sense, so I'm not going to focus on that today. So a little bit of summary on the existing flows to the plant. The average day flow is about 320,000 gallons a day, where it's rated for about 550,000 gallons per day. Well, the max month it gets about 550,000 gallons per day, being rated only for 500,000 gallons per day. The recorded max flow is 2 million gallons a day, but we assume that it's the actual max flow is higher than that because the flow meter does cap out. As you can tell, there's a wide range in flows, and the biggest time of flow of the year is when it has a foot of snow on the ground and it rains. So it's all clean water getting into the sewer system, which the county is currently involved in a project to hopefully correct some of that. We looked at the capacity of each and every unit process of the plant, starting at the front end all the way through disinfection. And I won't bore you with all the details by reading all the numbers, but one thing I will note is the current plant is at or over capacity for nearly every major unit process. There is codes that specify redundancy for critical items like, influent pumps that convey sewage in. If one goes down, you should have enough capacity with one out of service to convey flows through the plant, and the plant doesn't. And that's basically from the start to the finish. It basically does have capacity issues all the way through. So some notable existing conditions. The current flows essentially exceed design capacities for several unit processes. This does not mean the plant doesn't work. It does not mean it's sending improperly treated sewage into the creek and ultimately into the lake. What it means is, compared to what it was designed to do and compared to current regulations, it does not meet them. So the plant is still able to handle, operators still make do with what's there, although it's undersized. The actual peak flow to the plant is unknown because the flow meter does cap out, so we had to make some assumptions there of how large to size it, but we are recommending that an influent flow meter is properly installed that can service the highest flows. The biggest issue that we saw with the existing plant is at the influent pump station. It is undersized. There is capacity issues there where operators have struggled to convey flows through the plant. There's also various components of the unit processes that are just antiquated and need to be upgraded. And then a portion of the process in dealing with the actual solids part of the wastewater treatment is unsustainable and non-compliant with current codes. It actually requires several trips a week from your operators to liquid haul essentially sludge to the village of Westfield, which is not really conducive long term of how the process works. Another notable existing condition is, last time I was here, we talked about a sewer expansion down the east side of the lake, and inclusive in that sewer expansion, there may be a development at the golf course. These things were, when this study kicked off, these were some of the things that we were looking at under this study to say, hey, could we take some of that sewage? Ultimately, as we discussed last time I was here, it was recommended for those to go south, but there is still development in or around this district that may occur. There was a new housing development on Mandolin Ridge that is, eventually will get built out, and flows to this plant are going to increase. And in addition, the town of Chautauqua is expanding their service area right now, which will flow to this plant. So flows to this plant are going to go nothing but up. So when we looked at alternatives, we looked at realistically 4 things. We looked at, although the wastewater treatment plant meets code or does not meet code, the plant generally meets permits. So we looked at an option saying, okay, if we didn't want to really expand the capacity of the plant, but we did want to upgrade it, what would that look like? We considered that upgrades are necessary for this plant to remain viable in the future. We also looked at expanding the capacity under the plant under a few different scenarios. One is keeping the unit process, the RBC unit process that you have there now, and the equipment associated with that. Another is adjusting to a better, more flexible treatment technology that is more flexible for future permit limits, which would be an activated sludge technology. So our study, realistically, it outlined 3 major things. Just like I said, it did 1, just improvements to the existing plant, no capacity upgrade. 2, it outlined keeping the existing RBCs and upgrading capacity. And then lastly, it outlined, going to that activated sludge technology. And the highlights are, if you're just going to upgrade it in kind, it's going to be just south of $4 million, $3.75 million. If you wanted to keep the existing technology and upgrade the plant, it would be up about $8.1 million, where if you wanted to change the technology for something more suitable for the long term, you're just north of $10 million at $10.1 million. We ultimately recommended moving forward with the more expensive project for various reasons. One is the size of that plant site is very small. If you were to upgrade the capacity now with the current technology, you would be capping it for the future. There is nowhere else to build any other tankage or anything else on that site, and it would be very difficult. 2 is permit limits just continuously get stricter and stricter in the wastewater process. Every few years they add a new requirement, and the RBC technology is just it's not as flexible. It will not provide as high quality of treatment as an SBR alternative. So if you're going to do a major upgrade for the modest increase in cost, we just felt it would be it would better suit the plant to go with a larger, more robust treatment system. So the project essentially includes upgrades to the influent meters, replacement of the main pump station, replacement of the current biological treatment process, converting as much tankage, reusing as much things on site as we can to save costs, and then ultimately increasing the capacity of the plant to take on not only your current flows, because you're undersized under current situations, but also to take on modest increases for future flows. So what we found when we estimated the cost out, assuming a 50 to 75% grant scenario, which we feel is very reasonable, that you're going to see an annual increase per user of $60 to about $121 per year, depending on how much grant. This is going to be combined with a potential increase from the project that you guys are underway right now, which is an I&I reduction project of about estimated at $76 per year. So it would entail an estimated future annual sewer cost of about $676 to $737. Again, this is assuming at least 50% grant is received. Is my understanding the county is not looking forward to move forward with this project, in speaking with the district itself, unless at least 50% grant is received. So there's one other potential thing that we did not consider. We did not consider when we were initially doing this study, we did not consider that if the whole sewer district, if a new sewer district on the east side of the lake is constructed and that connects the south and center, there's a very short branch between now North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District infrastructure and south and center Chautauqua Lake Sewer District infrastructure. What was not evaluated was could we decommission the north plant and send all of the flow down south? And that would have some benefits. It would remove the discharge from the north end of the lake, which the lake flows from north to south. So it would remove, phosphorus and nutrients from the lake water body. And obviously it's been a major goal of the county to improve water quality. It would consolidate 2 county plants into 1 major plant. The plant is reported to have capacity. But there's some significant unknowns with this. Will that east side district, will it get funded? Will it ultimately happen? I know that's the hope, but it still needs a lot of funding to happen. Is the south plant, operators do report capacity, but does it actually have capacity to take on such a large user up to 2 MGD, 2 million gallons a day during time? And then how much work along the way would that take with their existing collection and conveyance systems? So that wasn't analyzed. That's a more in-depth study that would have to be done separately. But the county has just applied for a grant funding to do that. That would hopefully will bring a $50,000 grant, probably awarded later this year, to look at that potential alternative. So our suggested next steps is to proceed if that's not happening, but remain flexible, because if conditions change, this project could change. So one thing is today is on the agenda is to complete the environmental review, which is seeker, evaluating the environmental impacts. That is needed to do to pursue grant funding, and so is the bond resolution that is being considered today. So we would, due to the uncertainties and how slow the funding process is, which does take 1 to 2 years to get a project like this funded, we'd say pursue grant funding now, and even though something else might be evaluated that could impact that plant. And then if conditions change in the future, remain flexible. You can always pivot and change gears before significant capital outlay is done on any project. And one thing to mention is I think if the county does get grant funding for the proposed project right now, which is inclusive of upgrading the North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District plant, and they do decide to change courses, I think the grant funds that they receive will be reallocated, and you'll be able to keep them based on my experience with the funding agency that would provide them. So by continuing to move forward with this process, even though there is this other alternative that may come in the future, by continuing to move forward in this process, I think you're putting the county in the best position, the most flexible position, and not delaying critical improvements to a plant that is there and does need improvements to remain viable. Does anyone have any questions?
Legislator Larson.
Thank you. What are the projected reductions in maximum flow rates with these efforts to reduce infiltration and inflow if they're successful?
Well, I am not the engineer for that project, but I was involved at a previous employer on it. And the one thing I will tell you whenever I sit in front of a community and talk about I&I improvements is you have to look at it 2 ways. What they're going to do on those I&I improvements is they're going to line clay sewer piping. They're going to fix manholes. They're going to protect and preserve that infrastructure. But in general, you're not necessarily going to see massive decreases in flow events because the private side infrastructure that the project is not touching is still likely has issues. Some pumps are connected, all the private work. So if you don't do private work, you're probably only going to see about a 10 or 15% reduction.
So do some of these homes have their downspouts from their gutters in fact run into the sewer line, and that's part of the inflow that winds up clean water going to the sewage treatment plant?
I don't know of anyone for sure that has their downspouts particularly connected, but I would assume there is private side issues. Some pumps connected to sewer lateral. So unless the county got in, did basement inspections, looked at that holistically, you're not going to necessarily solve that problem. And then enforcing that is another issue. It's very difficult. Even if somebody would disconnect a sump pump from the sewer system that's pumping all their basement water into the sewer, they might disconnect it and then reconnect it because it has nowhere to go. So it's very difficult to control private side I&I. The reason I personally would recommend what the county is doing and proceeding with that I&I project is because you're protecting your infrastructure regardless if you're holding out I&I or not, your clay piping should be lined to protect its longevity, because it will crack, it will collapse, and then you got to open cut replace it. And I know right now it's in a condition from my previous employment. I know right now it's a condition where it can still, most of it can be spared without open cut replacement. So I think when you look at an I&I project, it's very critical to try to reduce I&I. At the same token, the major benefit of it is preserving that infrastructure so you don't have to do something more expensive down later on.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the public hearing?
Engstrom, could you clarify what amount, what volume goes into the lake now, and what volume would go in to the lake from any of the projected proposals that you have enumerated for us?
So when you say what volume goes into the lake, all of the flow eventually goes into the lake. It is just treated, and there's a limit that they have to treat to discharge it into the creek before it goes into the lake. So all of the flow goes into the lake. I am not aware of any raw sewage that overflows into the lake without receiving some level of treatment. I am not aware of that. There is online, if there is sewage overflows, the operators are supposed to report it, and it's actually online public information for every plant across the state.
So the ultimate goal of all of the projects that we've seen progress recently is to not have flow into the lake. So the ultimate goal for the future would be to hopefully connect. Is that what would happen if you connect to the east?
So if you connect it to the east and eventually the south and center, the south and center district does discharge right at the very southern point of the lake, but it takes it out of that, most of the lake's, flow of water. So that is a benefit of that project. The financial feasibility or the design feasibility, I mean, that's what will come out during that study, and I'm sure in about a year from now, I or somebody else will be standing here presenting to the public on the findings from that study.
But you're unable to assess actually what the impact is of current flow into the lake on the concerns that we've all been expressing for the benefit of our lake and the prevention of alien species.
So
and
there's
haves.
right. So there's two type of technical professionals you're looking at. You're looking at a water quality scientist who would analyze impacts on the lake from flows of wastewater plants, something that the Army Corps of Engineers, the DEC, and everything did. I am an engineer proficient in wastewater treatment. So what we treat to and what we do is the permit limits that are set by the regulatory agencies, DEC, and what have you, EPA and what have you, to treat plant water to go into it. So I hope that answers the question, but I am not proficient in that lake exact water quality.
Anyone else wishing to address the public hearing? Legislator Larson.
Just as a point of information, I represent the much of the north side of the city of Jamestown, and the fact of the matter is that the South and Center Sewer District Treatment Plant many years ago carefully placed their outfall right at the Jamestown city line. So there's an old saying about sewage that it flows downhill. Well, this sewage, however much you all collect to protect Chautauqua Lake, is deposited at the Jamestown city line. And so whatever symbolically that says about some attitudes toward our city of Jamestown, so be it. Thank you.
Anyone else to address the public hearing? Anyone else? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Matt, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Resolutions. Resolution 11925. Confirm appointment North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District.
Any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 120-25. Confirm appointment County of Chautauqua Industrial Development Agency Board of Directors.
Any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 121-25, appointment to the Chautauqua County Agricultural and Farmland Protection Board.
Are there any questions, any comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 122-25, amend 2025 budget for carts.
Are there any questions on the resolution? Legislator Nelson.
Or Larson.
Larson.
On
He's
the
over here.
On the subject of carts, it's interesting that legally, we're still referring to it as carts, which is fine with me. The resolution alleges some increase in ridership, undefined. For our May legislature meeting, Mr. Chairman, I'd request that we get a report on what was the ridership in the year before this advertising, and what has the ridership been since. On the subject of carts, I would request that by next month's meeting, we all be given a report on the total amount of money, wherever the money comes from, how much money is being spent on the carts hub in downtown Jamestown. I believe, my memory is, the acquisition cost of this small lot with an abandoned gas station was something like $130,000. It was public that the intent was to renovate the abandoned gas station, and that would be the carts hub. I'd like to know the cost of the consultants that have been hired, whether for asbestos, structural engineers, or whatever. Somebody made a determination that, sadly, the abandoned gas station could not be renovated, and we have paid for the demolition of that building. I'd like a report on how much that demolition has cost us. Then there has to have been a design of a new building. I'd like to know those costs, and what is the construction cost to be of the new building. We need to know all of this to understand how much money we paid to wind up with a small vacant lot in downtown Jamestown. That would be the acquisition cost and the demolition cost and the consultants involved. It's important that we have full disclosure for our public of what this project is winding up costing us. I have a feeling on the construction cost of whatever small building it's going to be, my seatmate here could build it for a lot less money than is being estimated for this little place for people to wait, for bus drivers to hang out a little bit, and maybe an office for some manager or carts employee to occasionally be there. The public's entitled to know how much money is winding up with a new building instead of a renovated building. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 123-25, approves New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, findings for the North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District wastewater treatment plant expansion project.
Are there any comments or any questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 124-25, North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District determinations in relation to the upgrade of wastewater treatment plant infrastructure.
Are there any questions, any comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 125-25, North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District capital account establishment in relation to the project to upgrade wastewater treatment plant infrastructure.
Are there any comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 126-25, A resolution authorizing the issuance of $10,147,000 bonds of the County of Chautauqua, New York to pay the cost of the North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District upgrade of wastewater treatment plant infrastructure project.
Legislator Nelson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we amend by substitution Resolution 126-25 with the resolution that's been provided on our desk.
Okay, we have a motion to amend by substitution and a second by Legislator Gustafson. Is there any discussion on the motion to amend Resolution 126-25? Hearing none. All those in favor of amending, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is amended. Now on to discussion of Resolution 126-25 as amended. Are there any questions or comments on the amended resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Mr. Chairman,
Would that be Steve Abdallah?
yes, Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
a reminder that that would be a roll call vote on the bond resolution.
Thank you very much for pointing that out. See, that's why we have a parliamentarian. Even if he's not here physically, he keeps good track. So we will now back up and do a roll call vote, if the clerk would, on amended Resolution 126-25.
Mr. Anthony?
Yes.
Mr. Bankowski is absent. Mr. Buchanan is absent. Mr. Carl is absent. Mrs. Dickey?
Yes.
Mrs. Gustafson?
Yes.
Mr. Harmon?
Yes.
Mr. Heiser?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Landy?
Yes.
Mr. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Neville?
Yes.
Mr. Pavlock?
Yes.
Mr. Penhallow is absent. Mr. Proctor?
Yes.
Mr. Scudder? Ms. Vanstrom?
Yes.
Chairman Chagnon?
Yes.
There are 15 yes votes and 4 members absent. The resolution is adopted.
Thank you.
Resolution 127-25, authorize county to apply for grants on behalf of the North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District for upgrade of wastewater treatment plant infrastructure.
Are there any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 128-25, amend capital project accounts, Jamestown Community College.
Any comments, any questions on the resolution? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 129-25, amend 2024 budget for year-end reconciliations, miscellaneous department.
Are there any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 130-25, transfer American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, spending plan budgets from 2024 to 2025.
Any comments or questions on the resolution?
Mr. Chairman.
Legislator Larson.
The next two resolutions dealing with the American Rescue Plan, I gather that basically wraps up the use of the $26 million we received, plus the interest we've earned on the money since we received it. I just want to point out that this was $26 million from the Biden administration. Why do I say Biden administration? I double-checked today. The Senate passed it 50-49 with no Republican senator supporting sending $26 million to Chautauqua County. The House passed it 220-211, all Republicans voting not to give $26 million to Chautauqua County. The President signed it into law March 11 of 21. In my opinion, Chautauqua County has benefited greatly from this $26 million plus interest. as I've seen the program, there were almost no strings attached. Anyone that served in the legislature for more than a couple of 3 years knows the local officials restrain condemning unfunded state mandates, and there's a lot of truth to that. Not 100%, but there's a lot of truth to it. This was a rare case where basically this $26 million came from the Biden administration to Mayville, to the Chautauqua County government, and trusted this government to make a decision as to what is of value long-term for this county, and allowed this body and executive to decide where to put 26 million bucks. It was very good. It's my impression that this county has done a very good job of using that 26 million plus the interest on it, and I commend all of those that have been involved. My city of Jamestown got $28.5 million. Sadly, I cannot compliment their decision-making in the same way as I just complimented the decision-making here in this chamber. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 131-25, amend spending plan and 2024 budget for Chautauqua County projects funded by the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA.
Any questions, comments on the resolution?
Mr. Chairman.
Legislator Larson.
As you know from the Economic Development Committee meeting last week, I'm old enough to confess when I don't understand something. This resolution on the face of it says reduce or decrease appropriation, contractual, promotion of industry, $1,500,000. I don't know what the overall impact of this resolution I'm being asked to vote on tonight really has in terms of the funds that we're making available for the promotion of industry. Perhaps someone could, from budget or finance, could explain the mechanics of this resolution and the net effect of it in terms of, is there $1.5 million still going for promotion of industry or not? Thank you.
Would you please clarify your request?
Yeah, on the face of it, it says decrease contractual promotion of industry $1.5 million. Whatever is going on here, this was not discussed at the Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting last Wednesday, right, where we deal with the county development, economic development. We oversee the county industrial development agency. I just like a plain English explanation of what this resolution does.
Legislator Larson, if you'd permit me, I believe I can give you a plain English explanation.
Thank you.
We had allocated ARPA funding for a broadband expansion project, and when we did a solicitation, we hired a consultant to develop a plan. We did a solicitation. We chose contractors to implement the plan, and then the state changed the rules of the game and requiring requirements that were not in the original plan. So the one contractor that had gotten the largest portion of the project backed out. So that was $1.5 million of ARPA funds that had to be, at the last minute, reallocated to other projects.
Thank you. So it was the concept of the county somehow being involved in the broadband business, and now we won't.
Not to say we won't long-term.
But not at the moment.
Not at the moment.
That doesn't bother me.
A small portion of that project is being implemented.
As a legislator fellow, Fred Johnson has complimented me as a fiscally conservative legislator. While I understand there are challenges with broadband internet, in every square inch of any county in upstate New York, probably, where the private sector is active and can provide services such as Verizon, such as DFT, such as Spectrum, such as Kinetic, Windstream. I don't think it would be high on our priority list to get this county government involved, where the private sector hopefully will continue to service the needs of our population. Thank you.
If you would allow me to continue, the project that is going forward is being done by DFT. The contractor that backed out was, I believe, Spectrum. This will not be a county project. This would be projects that are implemented by current providers, internet service providers.
Beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. It's not my custom to speak that much from the chair, but I thank you for allowing me. And then, are there any other questions or comments on Resolution 13125? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 132-25, supporting passage of A.7251 and S.7149, an act to amend the tax law in relation to extending the authorization for Chautauqua County to impose an additional 1% rate of sales and compensating use taxes.
Are there any questions or comments on the resolution? Legislator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last month, I supported lowering this sales tax, and I still believe that it is the right thing to do for our county residents. Lowering the sales tax, even just a small amount, can have several benefits. First, it'll lead to increased consumer spending, thus stimulating the economy, meaning more sales for retailers, potentially leading to job creation and economic growth. Second, it will increase our competitiveness because we border Pennsylvania on two sides. Lowering the sales tax will encourage our residents to shop within the county rather than drive just a few minutes to Erie or maybe Warren, PA. Third, the sales tax can disproportionately affect lower income families who spend a larger percentage of their income on taxable goods. So I will be voting against this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? Legislator Larson.
Again, last month, I sponsored the resolution that would have asked the state to increase our base sales tax to 7%, but to increase it to 7 3/4 instead of 8. Unfortunately, we couldn't muster 10 votes to give the taxpayers that break. I did more research on the origins of the extra 1%, the stated reasons for it over the years. The resolution of this legislature back in 2007, for example, asking for the extra 1%, quote, will help pay for Medicaid, unquote. I continued to do research on the Medicaid justification. Throughout the 8 years of County Executive Goodell, I'm sure each of his State of the County messages blamed the increase in the county share of Medicaid for all of our financial problems. The 8 years of Mark Thomas following Executive Goodell, here's what I found that I didn't know last month. Mark Thomas's second year in office, 1999, the county share of Medicaid was $13 million. 6 years later, 2005, the county budget had $33 million as the local share of Medicaid. Poor County Executive Thomas had the local share of Medicaid go up $20 million in 6 years. The state then capped the county's share of Medicaid. I only learned last month that while County Executive Thomas's 2005 budget had $33 million for Medicaid, county share, 20 years later, In our 25 budget, we only have 32 million. So $1 million less in unadjusted Medicaid for inflation. Adjusted for inflation, folks, the 33 million of 20 years ago would be $55 million today. So Medicaid, 20 years later, is no excuse for continuing the added 1%. Then I didn't have all the documentation on our sale of the county home. You've heard me say a couple, 3 times, but I'll say it 2 or 3 times more. I was the deciding vote in early 2014 to sell the county home. Takes a 2/3 vote. I was the deciding vote that night to sell the county home. I found a newspaper clipping this week from Post-Journal in March of 2015, 2 months after the sale had closed. The county announced that it netted at least $16 million from getting rid of the county home. Netted at least $16 million. I won't go into the county continued to receive some federal assistance for our public nursing home as much as 2 budget years after we got rid of the thing. Let's just go with the 16 million bucks. I wasn't around here to ask questions about what are we doing with that $16 million one-shot profit, because I went on the Jamestown City Court bench. I don't know what happened to that 16 million. I have a feeling it may linger on 9 years later, 10 years later as part of the $35 to $40 million fund balance. But the county home, not only did it stop being a loser of $3 million a year these last 11 years, which cumulatively would be $33 million, it deposited a net of 16 million bucks into the county coffers by March of 2015. So the county home drag on this budget is no longer any reason for the 1% extra sales tax on our people. Medicaid is not growing and is no excuse for this extra 1%. The other thing that I did learn as of last month, this extra sales tax has to be requested by a county legislature every 2 years. So even if we had followed the Post-Journal suggestion of just drop it to 7, it would be a 2-year experiment. If sales didn't grow, if sales tax receipts didn't grow, if retail didn't grow, 2 years from now we could say the 7 didn't work, we got to go to 7.5, 7 3/4, 8, whatever. So I will obviously be voting against this tonight. I didn't ask for this state legislation last month. Unlike our two prior ago Assemblyman Parment one year, the county legislature asked for 8 from the state, and our Assemblyman wrote back and said, I am not going to carry that bill. I will carry 7 3/4, I believe. And with the Assemblyman indicating a division of the extra 3/4 with municipalities, or else he wouldn't carry the home rule request. We made a mistake last week. If we don't act tonight, I guess our sales tax would go back to 7% for 2 years. That'd be good news for consumers, our people. And if it didn't work out financially, in 2 years, we'd ask for something more. So that's where we are tonight. I think it's unfortunate and it's not justified. The 1% is just not justified. Looking back at how the extra 1% ever started and was justified on the basis of Medicaid and secondarily by the $3 million a year roughly loss of the county home. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else? Legislator Nebel.
Mr. Chairman, it's true that we did receive $16 million for the county home, but the net profit from the county home was far less than that. We had construction bonds that we had to pay off. We had retirement costs. We had legacy costs associated with the county home. So I'm not sure exactly how much we profited by the sale of the county home, but it was far less than $16 million. Also, as far as losing $3 million a year, my analysis at the time showed that we were losing roughly about $1 million a year instead of the $3 million. Now, look, as far as the sales tax here this evening, the reason we should not lower or alter the sales tax or its distribution is because of uncertainty. We have uncertainty as to our federal funding, our state funding, even our sales tax, our mortgage tax, and also the occupancy tax, all of which contribute to the county's revenue sources. The prudent thing, I think, to do is to go through the budget process, which starts in about 3 months, see where we are at then, and then hopefully we can reduce the county property taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to question or comment? Legislator Larson.
What I said about the 3 million was true, and what Legislator Nebel said about the 1 million is also true. It was the county leaders at the time that kept telling the public that the home was costing us $3 million a year. The night I made my vote to sell, which my friend Legislator Nebel still holds against me, I said in my prepared statement that my analysis was the same as Mr. Nebel's, Legislator Nebel's, that after the special federal aid for public nursing homes was factored in, we were losing $1 million a year that we couldn't do anything about. The New York State pension amount, Legislator Nebel, Mr. Chairman, we had to pay on those county employees. The private buyer of the home came in and said, unlike our 10% roughly for the New York State pension on our people, his operation would pay about 4% into a 401k. So I agree with Legislator Nebel. He and I now disagree with what the leaders of this county said for a long time to encourage the county government to get rid of the county home. But I reported what they claimed the loss was. Legislator Nebel and I agree that the real loss was about $1 million a year. Nevertheless, it was $1 million a year that we weren't going to be able to get rid of other than by doing what many other counties had already done, and that is go ahead and sell it to a private operator. I commend Legislator Nebel's memory and analysis. I agree with him. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on the resolution?
Mr. Chairman.
Legislator Nebel.
I'd like to say that I appreciate the comments of the good legislator from District 12, and wonder if he'd like to retract his vote from 2015.
14.
2014.
No.
I didn't think so.
Any other comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll? You got it right, Steve.
Mr. Anthony?
Yes.
Mr. Bankowski is absent. Mr. Buchanan is absent. Mr. Carl is absent. Mrs. Dickey?
Yes.
Mrs. Gustafson?
Yes.
Mr. Harmon?
Yes.
Mr. Heiser?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Landy?
Yes.
Mr. Larson?
No.
Mr. Nelson?
No.
Mr. Nebel?
Yes.
Mr. Pavlock?
Yes.
Mr. Penhallow is absent. Mr. Proctor?
Yes.
Mr. Scudder?
Yes.
Ms. Vanstrom?
Yes.
Chairman Shagnon?
Yes.
There are 13 yes votes, 2 no votes, and 4 absent. The resolution is adopted. Resolution 133-25, supporting passage of A.7256 and S.7195, an act to amend the Chapter 405 of the laws of 2007, amending the tax law relating to increasing hotel/motel taxes in Chautauqua County in relation to extending the expiration of such provisions and to amend Chapter 335 of the laws of 2023, amending the tax law relating to the allocation of revenue from the hotel and motel taxes in Chautauqua County in relation to extending the expiration of such provisions.
Are there any questions or comments on the resolution? Legislator Larson.
I apologize if I voted earlier this year on a resolution asking the state to extend the occupancy tax law for us, just as last month you all asked the state to extend the 8% sales tax. I didn't, but did we pass a resolution that I just don't remember asking the state to do this resolution?
No, we did not.
And do you know why?
Perhaps our parliamentarian, Steve Abdallah, can enlighten us on that. Steve, are you there?
Yes, sorry about that. Yeah, it was not informally asked for through a resolution. It's not actually required that it be, although we typically do that. When there were conversations with our state legislators, they offered to go ahead and create bills for the occupancy tax extension, with the original 3% and the 2% for waterways. And so we did not move forward with the informal resolution knowing that bills would be created. And so that's how this is before you right now.
Mr. Chairman, you no doubt recall that either on the floor of the legislature or at our Economic Development Committee meeting some months ago, we established that the last action by the state legislature on our 3% occupancy tax to Assemblyman Goodell, I guess, wrote in the home rule that we had to give half of the 3% to a private organization. I'm pleased to serve on its board since you asked me to. But the Chautauqua County Visitors Bureau, for the first time, as a result of the last home rule, by law, gets 50% of whatever we bring in on the 3% occupancy tax. I call it, they're an entitlement entity as a private entity of government money that we raise through our decision to tax. I don't like that. I made that clear some months ago, and I was told that, well, we'd have the opportunity to review that language when we next asked for the occupancy tax to be continued. So unfortunately, I assume, and maybe Attorney Abdallah knows, does this extension still entitle the Chautauqua County Visitors Bureau to 50% of our 3% occupancy tax revenue? Is that unchanged?
That would be unchanged, yes.
Well, I'm afraid, Mr. Chairman, the CCV board will be unhappy with me, but I want to make it plain that I think the Chautauqua County Vacations Board is doing a great job with the money they get. I was county attorney when we first established the occupancy tax. And the very first year, we wound up giving, by our own decision of the legislature and the executive, we wound up out of the occupancy tax giving the CCVB more money than they had ever gotten from the county before. I think they're doing a great job. I want to make that perfectly clear. But I cannot sit here as an attorney legislator and say, I didn't have a chance to see if this legislature wanted to ask for us to go back to where this body decides where all the 3% goes, where the CCVB had to apply every year and justify themselves to this body. I wanted to at least see if you all would go along with that. I've been denied that opportunity. This is the Senate and Assembly bills that are sitting there here mid-April, and I'm being asked to vote for something that I never got a chance to change. So I'll be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the resolution?
Mr. Chairman, just a technical question. Could we go ahead and vote on this resolution as it's written, and then possibly later revisit the percentage that's given to the CCV board?
I believe, as Legislator Larson said, that it is written into the state legislation, the split of the 3%.
Okay. Is he sure about that?
I would say I'm 98% sure that
Okay.
we either ask for this as it's written and printed, or we risk the authority running out. We could, arguably, we could pass a home rule request tonight that we want the mandatory 50% to CCVB to be deleted. I didn't make myself perfectly clear earlier. When I first got on this board last year, you all confirmed, and I appreciated your confirming it publicly, this legislature did not ask Assemblyman Goodell to put that 50% in the legislation. He did it, as I understand it. You didn't ask for that. The home rule you got 2 years ago was not what you asked for. And I think that's unfortunate. So I was hoping for a chance this state legislature spring here, winter, I was hoping that there'd be a resolution come up where we asked for the continuation of the occupancy tax, and I could see if I could convince you to ask that it go back to what you had always asked for, which is we decide where the $1.2 million roughly goes. That from 2000, whenever we passed this, 2003, 4, first time, for almost 20 years, nobody was entitled to get money that this legislature didn't vote on. And all of a sudden, we got mandated to hand over half the money, regardless of how much it might be, to a private organization. And I just thought that I'd have a chance to discuss with you all, are you comfortable with that, since it was not your idea in the first place, or can we change it? And Mr. Nebo brings up a point I hadn't thought of. We could have asked that be changed, that a minimum of a certain percentage go to CCVB. If they wanted more than the minimum, Legislator Nebo, they could come and ask us, and we could give them another 100 grand or whatever for specific projects. We will have no such opportunity apparently for 2 more years. Is that probably right, Attorney Abdallah?
Yes, this would be a 2-year extension.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anthony.
Yes.
Mr. Bankowski is absent. Mr. Buchanan is absent. Mr. Carl is absent. Mrs. Dickey.
Yes.
Mrs. Gustafson.
Yes.
Mr. Harmon.
Yes.
Mr. Heiser.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Landy.
Yes.
Mr. Larson.
No.
Mr. Nelson.
No.
Mr. Nebo.
Yes.
Mr. Pavlock.
Yes.
Mr. Penhallow is absent. Mr. Proctor.
Yes.
Mr. Scudder.
Yes.
Ms. Vanstrom.
Yes.
Chairman Chagnon.
Yes.
There are 13 yes votes, 2 no votes, and 4 absent. The resolution is adopted. Resolution 134-25, authorize regional partnership agreements with municipalities for the explosive detection canine program.
Are there any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
135-25, authorize amendment of lease agreement with the City of Dunkirk to increase office space for the Office of the Chautauqua County Public Defender.
Any comments? Any discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
136-25, FY 2024 Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness FY 24 HMEP Grant Program.
Any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
137-25, authorize standardization of striker equipment for Office of Emergency Services.
Any questions or discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
138-25, authorizing submission of application for 2025 Community Development Block Grant funding through the New York State Office of Community Renewal.
Any comments or any questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
139-25, amend 2025 budget to implement waterway hazard removal using interest earnings from American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, and 3% occupancy tax reserve.
Are there any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
140-25, accept state environmental quality review of proposed 2025 agricultural district inclusions.
Any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
141-25, determination of Chautauqua County Legislature on proposed 2025 agricultural district inclusions.
Are there any questions or any comments on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
142-25, accept state environmental quality review seeker determinations for the New York State Snowmobile Trail Grant in Aid Program for 2025 through 2026 snowmobile season.
Any comments or questions on the resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
143-25, a resolution authorizing $1,612,000 bonds of the County of Chautauqua, New York to pay the cost of the increase and improvement of the Portland-Pomfret-Dunkirk Sewer District in and for said county.
Are there any comments or any questions on the resolution? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anthony.
Yes.
Mr. Bankowski is absent. Mr. Buchanan is absent. Mr. Carl is absent. Mrs. Dickey.
Yes.
Mrs. Gustafson.
Yes.
Mr. Harmon.
Yes.
Mr. Heiser.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Landy.
Yes.
Mr. Larson.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Nebel.
Yes.
Mr. Pavlock.
Yes.
Mr. Penhallow is absent. Mr. Proctor.
Yes.
Mr. Scudder.
Yes.
Ms. Vanstrom.
Yes.
Chairman Chagnon.
Yes.
There are 15 yes votes and 4 members absent. The resolution is adopted. Resolution 144-25, a resolution authorizing $5,480,000 bonds of the County of Chautauqua, New York to pay the cost of the increase and improvement of the North Chautauqua Lake Sewer District in and for said county.
Are there any questions, any comments on the resolution? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anthony.
Yes.
Mr. Bankowski is absent. Mr. Buchanan is absent. Mr. Carl is absent. Mrs. Dickey.
Yes.
Mrs. Gustafson.
Yes.
Mr. Harmon.
Yes.
Mr. Heiser.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Landy.
Yes.
Mr. Larson.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Nebel.
Yes.
Mr. Pavlock. Mr. Penhallow is absent. Mr. Proctor.
Yes.
Mr. Scudder.
Yes.
Ms. Vanstrom.
Yes.
Chairman Chagnon.
Yes.
There are 15 yes votes and 4 members absent. The resolution is adopted. Resolution 145-25, setting the salary for chief paramedic.
Are there any questions or comments on the resolution? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anthony.
Yes.
Mr. Bankowski is absent. Mr. Buchanan is absent, and Mr. Carl is absent. Mrs. Dickey.
Yes.
Mrs. Gustafson.
Yes.
Mr. Harmon.
Yes.
Mr. Heiser.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Landy.
Yes.
Mr. Larson.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Nebel.
Yes.
Mr. Pavlock.
Yes.
Mr. Penhallow is absent. Mr. Proctor.
Yes.
Mr. Scudder.
Yes.
Ms. Vanstrom.
Yes.
Chairman Chagnon.
Yes.
There are 15 yes votes and 4 members absent. The resolution is adopted. Resolution 146-25, setting the salary for Discovery Facilitator.
Are there any comments or discussion on the resolution? Hearing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Anthony.
Yes.
Mr. Bankowski is absent. Mr. Buchanan is absent. And Mr. Carl is absent. Mrs. Dickey.
Yes.
Mrs. Gustafson.
Yes.
Mr. Harmon.
Yes.
Mr. Heiser.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Landy.
Yes.
Mr. Larson.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Nebel.
Yes.
Mr. Pavlock.
Yes.
Mr. Penhallow is absent. Mr. Proctor.
Yes.
Mr. Scudder.
Yes.
Ms. Vanstrom.
Yes.
Chairman Chagnon.
Yes.
There are 15 yes votes and 4 members absent. The resolution is adopted.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to our announcements. Are there any announcements for the good of the order? Any legislators like to share an announcement? Seeing none and hearing none, that will bring us to our second privilege of the floor. Members of the public may comment on any subject. A member of the legislature may speak on any subject. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes, and comments representing a group shall be limited to 5 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to address the second privilege of the floor? Legislator Gustafson.
Thank you, Chairman. Jamie Gustafson, Shadyside Road, Lakewood, New York. As many of you heard during the County Executive's State of the County address on March 26th, Chautauqua County has a rich history of pioneering energy production. Starting right here in Fredonia, where the first gas well in the United States was drilled in 1825. That legacy of innovation continues to inspire us today. We're excited about the potential energy future of Chautauqua County. Recently, our county executive participated in a roundtable focused on the NRG facility in Dunkirk. The conversation explored the possibility of repowering the plant with natural gas through 2040, followed by a transition to nuclear energy. Executive Wendell proudly joined Senator Borrello, Assemblyman Molitor, Mark Geis from the IDA, representatives from the Governor's Office, NYSERDA, and regional energy experts in that important dialogue. As our county executive champions the efforts of Chautauqua County to become a leader in micronuclear energy production, we want to show our support for that forward thinking. Therefore, I respectfully request that the legislative clerk draft a letter of support addressed to our county executive and New York State Governor, endorsing our continued exploration of innovative energy solutions here in Chautauqua County. Before submission, each legislator will have the opportunity to sign this letter as a gesture of approval. Let's honor our past by boldly investing in our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Legislator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, and I think you were present at that part of our Economic Development Committee meeting last Wednesday, the committee chair, the committee agreed to ask our planning department to prepare a memo or report by next legislature meeting or June at the latest that gives us an overview of the literature, the information available at this time on small modular nuclear plants. And I think it's not fair to ask 19 legislators to sign some letter about a complicated topic before we have been provided with basic information from our planning department on what small modular nuclear technology is at the moment, who are the major players, what kind of land area might be needed for such production. And so I would respectfully request that we at least, maybe Chairman Harmon, maybe it sounds like you need to ask the planning department to have that little report or memo to us by next month. I will not be signing any letter until I have some basic information about a very important topic. And I suspect that a number of us are going to be very supportive of this concept. But I, for one, have not read a great deal about the background. I've read 2 articles, one CNN, one NBC News. I don't know about the rest of you, how much reading you've done since the State of the County message on small modular nuclear. I would like to be an informed legislator before putting my name on the line on a major, major topic. We have had, and we will probably have tonight, we have had almost every meeting, members of the public commenting on the downside of wind power, the downside of solar power, the downside of battery storage of solar and wind power. I will be amazed if after we sign a letter to the state saying the Chautauqua County would like to have the state cooperate with us in exploring the possibility of small modular nuclear facilities being built in Dunkirk or anywhere else along the shore of Lake Erie or in Chautauqua County. I would be amazed if there's not 1 or 2 people in the back of this room in the months that follow that have some questions about nuclear power. So let's get some fundamental information in front of all 19 of us from our planning department, and then let's take whatever action as a group we want to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Legislator Gustafson.
I respectfully understand your concerns, and I think that this is a starting point for the exploration of innovative energy. I don't believe that we have pinpointed any type of specific projects or initiatives, but at this point, I think it's important for this legislature to show our support for that research.
Thank you. And Legislator Johnson.
Just for the fun of it, I actually have spent a lot of time over the years researching this, and I absolutely respect Mr. Larson's concerns and wanting to be well informed. That's a good thing. But where I sit right now, I'm happy to sign this thing.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the second privilege of the floor? Open to the public.
Hi. I guess I want to make a comment on...
Please.
I'm sorry. Stephanie Nick from Faulkner, New York.
Thank you.
I want to make a comment on Resolution 122-25, the Carts Bus Amendment. First, I want to say it's not just a bus stop. It's a bus junction. I ride the bus regularly throughout the county. I don't know anyone here who can tell me that they pay $30 a week to ride between Jamestown and Dunkirk 5 days a week, because that's what it costs on the Chautauqua County Carts bus. And the junction that is being built and is currently being built, I've seen the progress as I drive by every day. It's there for a reason. It's important. It's a junction that all of the buses come to. People travel from around the county to that junction to get to other places within the county, which means sometimes, because we are a rural county, that you're waiting 30 plus minutes, which is not great, but is something that people are accepting of. And I can say that in the hot summer months, in the very cold winter months, having an indoor space while you're waiting for a bus from Jamestown to Dunkirk, or Jamestown to Mayville, or Jamestown to anywhere else in the county, having that inside space is really important. And I would just like to challenge everybody in this room to give the bus a try. Try CHQ Transit if you haven't. It's actually really reliable, it's consistent, and it is something that can save everybody money and is really a positive thing in this county. And it has grown. Ridership has grown, especially with the tourism route in the summertime. And I think people who haven't been on a CHQ Transit bus should try it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the second privilege of the floor? Please.
My name is Marcia Wessling Johnson. I represent the Chautauqua County Democratic Committee. 18% of Chautauqua residents live below the poverty line, including 25% of our children, well above the national average of 18%. 10% of those 65 and over live in poverty, facing challenges of aging with limited resources. 14% of people under 65 live with a disability. There is help for these people, but the president and the current administration is planning to drastically cut these programs. There are 3 areas where the most devastating cuts will be felt. SNAP, more commonly known as food stamps, is the first. According to the county's own data from 2022, almost 12,000 households in Chautauqua County were receiving SNAP, nearly 24,000 people. In our congressional district, 45% of households receiving it include children, and 27% include people over the age of 60. This would hurt not only the people, but the rural economy as a whole. For every dollar spent through SNAP, it's estimated that $1.70 is generated. And the average monthly benefit is $180, just over $6 a day. What they're not talking about cutting are tax deduction for business lunches, entertaining clients, and golf outings. HEAP, the Home Energy Assistance Program, provides critical support to low-income households by helping pay heating and utility bills. Shockingly, on April 2nd, President Donald Trump, or was it President Musk, fired the entire staff of the federal HEAP office. Gone, just like that. The same office that oversees assistance to 6.2 million Americans who rely on HEAP to survive bitter winters and scorching summers. The county website doesn't say how many receive HEAP, but they did talk about 4,000 families who receive benefits. Vulnerable seniors, families with small children, individuals with chronic illnesses, they all face heightened risk when temperatures drop or spike. Without federal coordination, how will the governments do this? It's not about comfort, it's about survival. The most important cut comes from Medicaid. According to your website from 2022, 4,000 residents receive Medicaid, and then another 5,000 receive SSI. For our elderly population, 643 residents were in nursing homes receiving Medicaid and 190 in assisted living. Trump and the Republicans in Congress are pushing to reduce the Medicaid funding. This is a direct threat to the most vulnerable people in our communities. What will happen when this funding disappears? Those in nursing homes could face eviction. Children with chronic illnesses may find their treatments unaffordable. Individuals with disabilities who rely on Medicaid could lose access to basic health care and medication. It's also a threat to our rural hospitals, which are already on life support. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, 20% of all hospital funding comes from Medicaid payments, probably even higher in rural areas. Add that 25% come from Medicare, which is also being eyed for cuts. It could mean layoffs, complete shutdowns. We will see consequences in Chautauqua County. It could hollow out our rural health care infrastructure and leave thousands with nowhere to turn. I want to know what you intend to do about this. Do you have a plan to protect these lifelines? What will you do to make certain these citizens receive care? Will the burden fall on the county taxpayers to help these needy individuals stay alive? Will you stand up to your party leadership and demand that these cuts not happen? Or will you remain silent, letting ideology outweigh humanity? You have a duty to call out dangerous policies. Speak up for your constituents and bring the fight to Capitol Hill. We need to hear your plans, not after the programs are gutted, but now when there's time to act. If you fail to take a stand, the very people who trusted you with our votes, our voices, and our futures could die. The people of Chautauqua County deserve an answer. We deserve leaders who will fight for us, not just follow the party line into silence. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the second privilege of the floor? Legislator Vanstrom.
Good evening. I just want to say I love our CHQ transit program. It serves so many people in our county, and I've known many, many of the riders who have not had a sour word to say about it, and it's nice to have reliable transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next to address the second privilege of the floor.
Yes, good evening. My name is Bobby Colt, and I'm speaking as a resident of Chautauqua County and an American citizen of this nation. And I'm going to speak in a different way. This is a wording that I have composed, and it's titled, "We Are Still Here for Chautauqua County and our nation in a time of trial. They cut the cords that keep us whole, snap our supper, Medicaid our soul. Heat once warmed these winter nights, now cold creeps in and dims the light. From White House desks with polished hands, they signed away what justice stands. But here the weight is real and near, in every cry, in every tear. Marginalized, we face the cost, the rights we fought for nearly lost. Black, brown, poor, and pushed aside, told to wait or run or hide. Our queer kin, LGBTQIA+, brave with colors, fierce with trust, now see the laws turn sharp, unkind, trying to erase both heart and mind. The SAVE Act strikes with subtle aim. It plays the part but rigs the game. A woman's name, a changed idea, becomes a threat to liberty. It shames the vote, delays the lines, and calls suppression just fine. And now the world looks in dismay. The U.S. joins a shameful way. Our human rights, we've lost our place, added to the watch list face. For speech once free, now met with fear. For truth once loud, now banned or clear. They aim to silence one more line, the 988 that saves in time. For vets who served in youth and pain, their crisis lifeline, LGBTQ, does have a name. Suicide prevention is about risk, not identity. Cutting this lifeline risks lives, not just dignity. For hearts in strife, it stands its ground, a refuge when no one help is found. To cut this thread is cold, unjust, a blow to those who gave their trust. But Chautauqua County knows how winds can shift, how voices rise and spirits lift. We've heard each other through the storm. We are sheltered still. We will transform. For policy may close a door, but love builds windows even more. And when they try to write us out, we'll answer loud. We'll sing. We'll shout. We are still here. We will not bend. We stand for neighbors, kin, and friend. We won't be silent, won't retreat. Justice walk on Chautauqua Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the second privilege of the floor?
Good evening. I'm Jim Werfritz from the town of Ellery and president of the Chautauqua Lake Property Owners Association, the CLPOA. I ask all to please pay close attention to what I have to say tonight. We're at a critical point in Chautauqua Lake, the surrounding county, and across the state relative to the DEC's new wetlands regulations. The harm from the flawed new wetlands regulations, their overly aggressive interpretation, the lack of comprehensive impact evaluation, and the DEC's obvious lack of preparation is already being felt after only 3.5 months. Ask the municipalities dealing with what the DEC has called their moral obligation relative to building permits. Ask hundreds of lakeshore property owners who now have wetlands and adjacent regulated areas with onerous restrictions along their shorelines. After watching the DEC aggressively move forward through 2024 and into 2025 without seriously considering public and elected representatives' concerns, and the DEC and governor ignoring pleas to delay implementation, it is unfortunately time for litigation. Last Friday, April 18th, the CLPOA, the Town of Ellery, the Builders Exchange of the Southern Tier, and the Bemis Point Business Association filed a petition with the State of New York Supreme Court in the County of Albany against the State of New York and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. The petition seeks annulment of the 2022 amendment to the 1975 Freshwater Wetlands Act and the subsequent wetlands regulations developed and implemented by the DEC this year. Although the county executive and the legislature failed to join our four organizations in this litigation, we hope you will strongly and publicly support our lawsuit in word and deed. Your constituents are getting abused by the state and the DEC and need you to act on their behalf. Our petition cites noncompliance with the New York State Administrative Procedures Act, deprivation of due process provided for in the New York State and United States Constitutions, arbitrary, capricious, and irrational amendments to the Freshwater Wetlands Act and 6 NCRR Part 664, the Wetlands Regulations, improper delegation of the DEC's regulatory responsibilities, and violation of the New York State Municipal Home Rule Law. In his introduction to the petition, our legal counsel said, quote, "The timing of the amendment and the regulations could not be more revealing. Just as the nation's highest court underscored the constitutional dangers of vague and boundless environmental regulation, New York chose to double down, empowering its environmental agency with the very kind of unfettered discretion the court explicitly warned against. Where the Supreme Court drew a hard constitutional line to protect landowners from capricious enforcement, New York blurred every line it could find. The DEC's regime now rests not on fixed definitions or clearly drawn jurisdictional maps, but on presumption, abstraction, and limitless agency discretion. In short, while the Supreme Court's Sackett ruling reaffirmed that there are constitutional boundaries to environmental authority, New York's response has been to sidestep them entirely. Additional information on the petition and the next steps in the process will be presented at Wetlands Public Meeting Number 9, Saturday, April 26, 9:30 to 11 at the Lawson Center in Bemis Point. We hope that several of you will attend to get a more complete story. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the second privilege of the floor?
Carol Winham, West Ellicott. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the future of energy in our community. I strongly support PJ Wendell's innovative micronuclear energy solutions and to explain why I believe wind and solar are not the right path for our area. Let me start with why micronuclear energy excites me. PJ's vision for small modular nuclear reactors offers a reliable, efficient, and low-carbon energy source that can power our homes, businesses, and schools without the drawbacks of other alternatives. These micro reactors are designed to be safe, compact, and capable of delivering consistent energy 24/7 regardless of weather or time of day. Unlike traditional large-scale nuclear plants, they require less land and can be deployed closer to where we need the power, reducing transmission losses and costs. Now, let's talk about wind and solar. Wind turbines and solar farms require vast amounts of land, disrupting our landscapes, wildlife, health, and rural character. They are also intermittent, producing energy only when the wind blows or the sun shines, which means we need costly and dangerous storage solutions to keep the lights on in our region with its cloudy weather, limited open land, and wildlife concerns. These challenges are even more pronounced. The environmental and economic costs of sprawling wind and solar projects outweigh their benefits here at Chautauqua County. Moreover, the financial picture tells a troubling story. A Forbes magazine article from 2020 revealed that in 2018, the solar industry received 250 times more federal tax incentives per unit of energy produced than nuclear sector. Wind wasn't far behind, getting 160 times more. That's $3.3 billion for solar and $2 billion for wind, compared to just $13.1 million for nuclear. And this doesn't even account for the state and local subsidies that further tilt the playing field towards renewables. If wind and solar are as cost competitive as their advocates claim, why do they rely so heavily on taxpayer dollars? This imbalance diverts resources from technologies like micronuclear, which could deliver more reliable energy with a smaller footprint. So I think this offers a path to energy independence, economic growth, and environmental stewardship without the land use conflicts and grid reliability issues that come with wind and solar. It's technology that can create local jobs and stabilize energy costs. So what can we do? I urge all of you, and it sounds like you're already doing it, to explore bringing micronuclear to our region. Let's advocate for policies that level the playing field, redirecting incentives towards reliable rather than perpetuating the bonanza for wind and solar. Let's engage our community in a conversation about the benefits of micronuclear, ensuring that our energy future reflects our values and needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Karen Engstrom. Yes, the legacy of innovation has been articulated several times. NRG, repowering NRG, would help Dunkirk as well as the county and solve a number of the issues that we are facing. One of the things that people don't recognize or are not very well aware of is the advantage of nuclear power in any form, whether it's micronuclear, small nuclear reactors, or even the standard large facility nuclear facilities that are in our state. As I've mentioned before, energy returned on energy invested when it comes to nuclear power is much more of a viable alternative to destroying our forests, our wetlands, and our agricultural heritage in this county. Nuclear power has the greatest power density. It uses the least amount of land. It requires the least amount of the Earth's natural resources, and it provides continuous, uninterruptible, and emission-free electricity. The life expectancy of a nuclear power plant is threefold that of any renewable project. If you've ever noticed what the Navy has done in the last 50 years, it has used nuclear power successfully. Our Navy has 72 submarines that contain nuclear power plants, 10 aircraft carriers containing nuclear power plants, and 1 research vessel. These nuclear power plants have visited 150 ports in over 50 countries without incident. 70 ports in the United States enjoy their visits. The nuclear power plants in these naval vessels have never produced any emissions whatsoever. In fact, the people who spend their time on them are exposed to less radioactivity than us normal citizens. So there's not been it's the very same reactors that are being proposed. And approximately 60% of commercial nuclear plants in the world use the very same kind of nuclear reactors. So I think the proposal that was offered by B.J. Wendell and Legislator Gustafson is one that should be pursued, and appreciate very much a positive alternative to some of the very negative things that we have seen through the so-called renewables that have been forced upon us by the state. So thank you.
Thank you.
Motivated me to get in line. Hi, my name is Jennifer Baker. I live here in Mayville. I just am going to agree to participate. I want to hear about the nuclear, but I was on a nuclear ship, and I know that now that they're being decommissioned, there's a lot of issues with figuring out what to do with all the nuclear waste. So when you're doing a report, I would like everyone to at least consider where does the waste go. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the second privilege of the floor? Legislator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the past few months, I've made comments during the second privilege of the floor. This is not intended to start an argument. It's intended to start a conversation with all of our Republican and Democratic legislators, because as one speaker noted, we're going to have to make some decisions, I think, and tough ones because of the current situation we're in. One of the programs that I'm concerned about and wanted to mention tonight was USAID, or U.S. Aid for International Development. It's one of the programs targeted for dismantling by the Department of Government Efficiency. Its principal purpose is to provide assistance to countries experiencing conflict, poverty, or disaster, and to promote democracy and economic growth. The United States has long been one of the largest donors of foreign aid in the world. President Trump has given Elon Musk the task of slashing the federal budget, charging waste, fraud, and abuse. Musk, the world's richest man, is leading a campaign to cut assistance to some of the poorest people in the world. To me, USAID sounds a lot like the Marshall Plan that provided economic aid to Europe after World War II. Despite the war's human cost of nearly 500,000 American lives and an estimated $330 million, the United States still provided $13 billion in aid to help rebuild Europe after the war and to deter the spread of communism. Historically, it's been recognized as one of our greatest humanitarian achievements. I was always very proud to talk about American generosity after World War II in my U.S. history classes. USAID is only about 0.2% of our total budget. In 2023, Ukraine and Israel were the largest recipients of USAID programs. So what might be the effects of cuts to these programs? Could the programs be more efficient? Probably. But if we could be that generous after World War II, why can't we show the same generosity today? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the second privilege of the floor? Legislator Proctor.
I make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second by Legislator Anthony. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and we're adjourned. Thank you.